It's going back the other way!
Put on a suit, drink water, don't drink and drive.
Game over!
Take it light. Okay.
Now you're more fluent.
Mackinac, he got three!
Up, Bears.
So this is really good right here. Absolutely. Let's do it.
All right. Welcome to the All American Hoops podcast, episode 41. And man, oh man, am I pumped. For those of you who are loyal watchers of the show, obviously you can tell that it's a different time now. Usually we do Tuesdays at 6 o'clock, but starting today, effective immediately, we will be doing our weekly shows at Thursdays at 8 o'clock, which I'm super psyched about. I'm doing the show solo today, but however, this does open up a lot more opportunities for the future, in which I can have more guests on. Obviously, 6 o'clock is a fine time, but I know a lot of people are just getting home from work, so it's going to be they feel a little rushed when they get home. So now that it's at 8 o'clock, people can go home, they can go to the gym, they can eat something, and then 8 o'clock comes around, they can just sit and talk some shop. So more specifically, my two brothers, John and Matt. Matt was getting home at like 5:20ish, maybe even a little bit later, like at like 5:40 in some cases, and he would just have like no time to relax. So he'll be back on the show very soon. And then John's the same way. He works in the city now, so he really had no time at all. The only time he came on the show in the past few months was actually we had like a special episode on Sunday. So we're all very excited to have this will be a regular time slot now on Thursdays at 8 o'clock. And also 8 o'clock, I just think we're going to get more viewership as well. Obviously, more people are probably going to tune in when they're probably just getting ready to wrap up the night rather than when they're about eating dinner. So super psyched, obviously. But for now, we also just have a regular episode ahead of us. I, for one, am very, very excited to talk about what's going on. So I will be covering the CBS Sports. They released their list of the ranking every single coach in the NBA. So I'm super psyched about that. So they released their list, and I'll be giving my own. I'm going to be releasing my own version. I did all 30 coaches. Now I'm going to explain later, but yeah, obviously it's going to be very tough. So there's going to be some disagreements. I made a poll the other day. I didn't get the screenshots in for those, but I thought that was very interesting. I thought the polls were very interesting in of themselves. So we're going to do that. And since I'll be doing it solo this episode, I figured this would be a good time for me to kind of baby into showing my top 100 lists. But for today, I'm just going to do it how I start off, which is just little by little. And I'll be doing it today by releasing my top 10 in each conference. So I did a little bit of that with Hoop Venue a few weeks ago, but however, I wanted to change things up. Not change things up. I made a few changes off my list. So yeah, there will be. It's not going to be the same exact thing from what it was a few weeks ago. But for now, this is the All American Hoops podcast. Welcome to the show. As per usual, my name is Chris Driscoll, your host. And one thing that I flew over in the introduction, I completely forgot to mention what episode it was. It's episode 41, or I did mention 41, but I didn't do my regular number episode. So obviously, Dirk Nowitzki is the first one that comes to mind in basketball. But however, as I mentioned often, big Mets fan, Tom Seaver, aka the franchise, which John and Matt are at the Mets game now. So as of now, I think it's 5-2 now. The last update I got, I think. 4-2. Brandon Nimmo. Shout out Brandon Nimmo. And hope to that John and Matt are having a great time, which I'm sure they are. Going on Saturday, I think. So yeah, we got a great show ahead of us. As I mentioned, the first thing I'm going to talk about is just CBS Sports releasing of their top 30 coaches in the NBA. So yeah, I'll just jump right into it. So this is a tweet from NBA Central. So they just tweeted out the entire list. Let me close the banner real quick, which I had to make the change to that banner right before the show because it does, it's just Thursdays at 8 rather than Tuesdays at 6. Again, you mentioned how psyched I am for that. So yeah, so here's the list right there. And there are a lot of things that I disagree with there. So yeah, I'm gonna touch on it little by little. So and I'll give like my next explanation for each of them. So yeah, Eric Spoelstra is definitely in my opinion, the best coach in the league. there's really not much of an argument either, in my opinion. So definitely can't hate much of Spoelstra being the best coach in the league, because every single year he brings his team to the playoffs. They always overachieve. This year wasn't the case really, because they were without their best player, Jimmy Butler. And as much as people want to say Jimmy Butler's a top whatever player just because of how great he is in the playoffs, which Jimmy Butler is a playoff riser, which another me, John, and Matt like to trash him a ton. But that being said, if you want to win a championship and you just want a guy who's going to make the most out of every single player on the team, Eric Spoelstra is your guy, and he is 100% the best coach in the league. So, which I don't know why I'm going on a tangent there, because I don't think many people disagree with that really. But yeah, big fan of Eric Spoelstra. Even though he passed, what is it, 2 in the last 5 years to beat the Celtics in the conference finals. So yeah, that hurts a little bit. But yeah, we did get him in 2022 and this year. Although it would have been nice if they did it with when they had Jimmy Butler. After that is Nick Nurse, number 2. Now, when I was revamping my list, I actually had Nick Nurse at 2 as well. I thought, obviously, he's a championship coach, won with the Raptors in 2019. In addition, one thing that I think gets kind of flown under the radar from Nick Nurse as a coach is how great he coached the Raptors in 2020. So that was, I want to say, yeah, 2020. Yeah, so that was in the bubble. So nobody was really expecting them to make it that far. But however, they ended up as the 2 seed, which is absolutely insane to me, because it's not like they got Kawhi through it's not like Kawhi was through a sign-in trade or anything. They had Kawhi just walked in free agency, and then they literally had no one to add back. So after that, Danny Green also walked, which was expected after Kawhi walked, because I think Danny Green was just waiting to see what Kawhi would do, because obviously if Kawhi Leonard is going to be a guy, if you want to win a championship, you should win with a guy who's just playing like the best player in the league. So, but then, however, Pascal Siakam had and Nick Nurse had other plans. They ended up as the 2 seed, ended up losing to the Celtics in the second round, and it took 7 games. I don't know what would have happened if it was not in the bubble. If it was not in the bubble, and if it was a regular home court thing, would have been very interesting, because the Celtics have always struggled on the road against the Raptors, not so much as of late, but when they were even, they always beat each other at home. So that wasn't an advantage of the Celtics. That advantage went to the Celtics. So as much as I like to think the Celtics would have won anyway, it's definitely an interesting thing to think about, in my opinion. But after that, yeah, I'm not going to go into too deep of a tangent after that. Rick Carlisle, I know that Knicks fans hate him because he's a bit of a whiner. I'm not going to lie, but however, I'm a big fan of him. Championship coach, obviously, won in 2011, which I know some people. I'm trying to losing my train of thought there. Yeah, some people kind of give him the Doc Rivers treatment, where they say, "Oh, that was so long ago," but he made the most out of the Pacers this year, and I think his time ran out of Mavs. That's why. That with the match, that's why I think he kind of started to lose the locker room a little bit, because it was been so long. But he seems to be doing a very, very good job with the Pacers now. Led them to the conference finals this year, which granted a lot of stuff had to go their way, but you got to be lucky if you want to succeed in the NBA sometimes. Steve Kerr, Ty Lue is interesting. Again, these are 2 championship coaches. So what is it? I think that, yeah, so all the top 5 coaches are NBA championships. Spoelstra in 2012 and 13. Nick Nurse in 2019, Rick Carlisle in 2011, Steve Kerr in 2015, 17, 18, and 22, Ty Lue in 2016. So all 5 of those are championship coaches, and it's funny because, what is it? I think Kerr and Spo are the only 2 that are still with their teams. Obviously, Nick Nurse went from the Raptors to the Sixers, Carlisle from the Mavs to the Pacers, and Ty Lue from the Cavs to the Clippers. So interesting thing to think about. Number 6 is the coach of the year, Mark Daigneault. Had an awesome year, without a doubt, with the Thunder. Not really much to say there. It's going to be interesting to see how he grows with the team, because I remember when it was 2020. So it was actually when I first started with the All-American Hooper account on Twitter, and one of my first tweets. I shouldn't say one of my first tweets, because it was probably I should say within the first few days. Just got a Mets updates. Okay, 4-3 now. Hopefully that doesn't stay too long. Hopefully the Mets extend. But one of my first tweets, like within the first few days, was when the Thunder hired Daniel as the head coach, and I said, okay, it was a shortened off season. Didn't really have time for a full-on interview process, so they just went with the guy who is familiar with the team and familiar with how things run, especially with the young team. And that's exactly what I said. I said it makes sense. I don't really know the guy, but it makes sense. And obviously it made sense because the Thunder finishes the 1 seed, and Mark Daniel did a fantastic job, which I don't even know if I'm saying his name right, but that's okay. Will Hardy is awesome as well. Former Celtic assistant coach. People talk about how great Ime Udoka was, which he was with the Celtics, but they don't really give their flowers to Joe Mazzulla, Will Hardy, or Damon Stoudemire, who are awesome assistant coaches. They really gave some great advice to Ime Udoka, which I understand actually that a lot of assistant coaches don't get their flowers, but that was an absolutely stacked assistant coach bench, which I will talk about later when I get into Joe Mazzulla. But yeah, big fan of Will Hardy. The Jazz have stunk the past couple of years because of the bad roster, which shout out Danny Ainge. He's kind of embracing the tank mode because he can't really do the free agent stuff with what they did with Boston. He also inherited a worse situation than with Boston, so that'll be but like hopefully they extended Markkanen, so hopefully they begin to do better after that. After that, number 12 is number 12. I don't know what I said. Oh yeah, number 8, Ime Udoka. Yeah, like I kind of gave my take on Udoka earlier. Great head coach. I think he's a little overrated. And kind of lives off the 2022 run. But the thing with Udoka is that a lot of that was just because, and they compare Udoka to Mazzulla all the time, which again I'm going to do. But I think that the difference between Udoka's like championship run is simply the fact that he got a healthy Rob Williams for the last for a solid 2 months till the end of the season there. So shout out Ime Udoka for completely fumbling the bag, by the way, because we don't know exactly what happens. There's my own reports. I'm not going to really comment on it, but however, he messed up, and he could be in a situation where they could have won the finals in 2023 if he was coaching, because he would have had the experience that Mazzulla didn't. They could have won again this year, so three-peating is a little tough, so maybe he wouldn't have done that. But he certainly would have been in a better situation with the Celtics than he was with the roster. Let's see, we've got a comment coming in. John Driscoll, that's my brother, obviously. Super psyched to have you back on the show soon. It's going to be sooner rather than later because it fits more with your schedule, so very hyped about that. Then I keep on saying I'm not going to touch on these guys, but I end up going a little bit longer, which I can do now because there's not a show after this, and it's on my own time. So Mike Budenholzer, I'm not a big fan of at all. I think he kind of saved his reputation. Giannis kind of saved his reputation in 2021. Before that, Bucks fans hated him; they wanted him fired. And then not a lot went well for him after that. So and the Suns aren't really a good situation either. So I don't know what they expect from him, but I definitely don't think he's a top 10 coach. Thibodeau, Knick fans love him, but I think it's going to be a Buck Showalter situation, which again, the Mets, where they love him because they get success, but then when they start to fall apart, they start to realize that a system can be a little flawed sometimes. After that, I got Joe Mazzulla, and I'm gonna go deeper into Joe Mazzulla when I show my list, because spoiler alert, he is higher. How much higher? You guys have to stay tuned to figure out. But yeah, most disrespected coach in the league, hands down, including Celtics fans. I went on the Simple Minds Sports podcast, and I just had to defend Joe Mazzulla because it was just 3 guys that hated him. And I don't know what you can hate about Joe Mazzulla, except that he can't really he's not really great at in-game adjustments. But then again, I think that's a little overrated aspect of a coach because I don't know many coaches that are good at that outside of like Ty Lue and Eric Spoelstra. To that, Chris Finch, I think was highly disrespected on this list. I think he finished 2nd or 3rd in Coach of the Year voting this year, and no one was expecting the Wolves to be this great this year, like the first seed. And give Anthony Edwards all the credit you want. Chris Finch was the one who organized the scheme. He's the one that made Karl-Anthony Towns and Karl-Anthony Towns and Karl-Anthony Towns and Rudy Gobert work all together. It was Chris Finch. He's the best. We got John and Matt talking in the chat again. Joe Mazzulla, number 2, will be number 1 after the repeat. Don't hate that at all. And Matt says ball and over. Shout out to the 2 of them for being the 2 most loyal people of the All-American Hooper brand. And always coming on the show. So very psyched very thankful for them. After that, we got Mike Brown. I don't remember where I had Mike Brown. I think it was a little bit higher. Maybe like a spot or two higher. I'm a big fan of Mike Brown. Guys, it's just a big shame though that LeBron James never got to deal with any good head coaches. Eric Spoelstra, Ty Lue, Mike Brown, all top 13 head coaches. I couldn't. Yeah, I wish it was just 1, 2, 3 though. Which I'm kidding. I'm just trolling with the LeBron fans, even though there aren't many in the comments. But I am aware that there's more to the situation than that though. Greg Popovich is 14. I have him a couple of spots lower because my issue with Greg Popovich, it's not that I'm not a big fan of him as a person, but that's besides the point. But essentially, my issue with Greg Popovich is that he hasn't won a playoff game. Wait, is it a playoff game? Is it a playoff series? He hasn't won a playoff series since Trump's first year in office. That was 2017. 2018, I want to say this was after Kawhi left. I think they lost in the first round to the Warriors. 2019, after Kawhi was traded, it was I think pretty sure it was they didn't tank or something. Like I think I'm getting my dates wrong actually. I think 2020 they missed the playoffs. 2019 they made the playoffs. They lost to. Or did they lose to the Warriors in 2019 and maybe 2018 or something else? I'll look that up later. I wish I had a producer to fact check me now. And then 21, 22, 23, they missed the playoffs. So, Greg Popovich is also a guy who's living off his name thing, but I digress. And Mike Malone at number 15 is hands down the most disrespectful thing about this. I understand that he had the collapse in Game 7 against the Wolves, but at the end of the day, he's a champion too, and and I think he's a much better coach than a lot of these guys ahead of him. So that's my take on these guys. Oh shit! I thought that was a bad thing. Oh my god! Yeah, I read that for a second. It's 7-3. Let's go Mets! Woo! So, it was probably very loud up the mic. I'm probably gonna have to turn on the volume when I get there. But let me share the screen to 16. I should have cut off Spoelstra's picture, but that's okay. Quinn Snyder, take him or leave him. I liked him with the Jazz. I thought he was a little disrespected there. But that being said, I don't know. Maybe it's because when the Celtics played the Hawks, he was a bit of a complainer, but that's okay. Taylor Jenkins at 17 is very, very disrespectful. I thought he should have won Coach of the Year in 2022, but Monty Williams won it. But I have zero issue with that. I like Monty Williams, even though it seems that the Pistons fans really hated him this year. But Taylor Jenkins is easily. I feel like people are just. I feel like with the Grizzlies as a whole, people are forgetting about them. But I think the Grizzlies can easily finish as the top seed in the West. I think a Western Conference Finals of the Thunder and the Grizzlies would be awesome. Ja versus SGA, obviously. Desmond Bain versus J-Dub. Chet versus JJJ. Marcus Smart versus Lou Dort. Those are all very, very fun matchups that I would love to see. Who's their center? Oh, Zach Edey. Yeah, Zach Edey versus what's his name? Hardenstein. I don't know. I paused there for a second. So yeah, that's it for the Grizzlies. 18, Jason Kidd. I forgot where the head I'm higher or lower. I'm gonna have to check that out later. But yeah, he's an interesting one. I thought he'd be a little bit higher because people were craving over him before the finals, but then obviously just didn't really have a great final series. Jamal Mosley was easily one of the most disrespectful part of this list. Jamal Mosley finished in the top 3 and Coach of the Year this year. The Magic were not supposed to be great this year. And Paolo Banchero, as great as he was this year, he wasn't as good as people were expecting him to be. And although he made the All-Star game, I thought he'd be much better. But everyone else around him was a lot better. So the fact that we didn't get that Banchero jump, but the Magic still finished as a top 5 seed in the East, I think that's a massive, massive green flag. So don't doubt the Magic winning a playoff series or two this year. I think their ceiling is making the conference finals, and don't because crazier things have happened, including the Pacers making it last year. Willie Green, I don't know much about. Kenny Atkinson, I was a fan of him with the Nets, and I know my friend James, a big Nets fan, he liked him as well. I thought it was a mistake for the Nets to get rid of him. Doc Rivers, very disrespected in my opinion by the media. I know people. I know like he's very respected by the league, I should say, because obviously they keep on giving him a lot of chances, which I think he deserves them because he knows the game of basketball more than anyone. But that being said, I don't know how great of a locker room guy he is. Bickerstaff, I was a big fan of in Cleveland, but I guess I think he just ran his course in Cleveland, similar to what's his name? Carlisle. Carlisle won a championship, but I guess a better comparison would be to Quinn Snyder, actually. Billy Donovan, I don't know much about, but I know that Kenny Beecham of the Numbers on the Board podcast despises him, so maybe he should be a little bit lower. Billups, I don't know much about. None of these guys I really know much about, except for down the list, but 28 Charles Lee. I know that in the article they mentioned that they're not going to pretend to know anyone, any of these new guys. So Charles Lee, Brian Keefe, and JJ Redick. I'm a massive fan of Charles Lee. He was awesome with Joe Mazzulla this year. Joe Mazzulla was good in his first season, but like there was clearly like that lack of experience, and but yeah, and I feel like part of the reason was because he didn't really have much of a bench as far as it goes for assistant coaches, and he picked up Charles Lee. Charles Lee and Sam Cassell were awesome with him this year, which, speaking of which, Sam Cassell 100% deserves a coaching job very, very soon. So, and then JJ Redick at 30. So yeah, JJ Redick obviously knows a ton about the game, but who knows what's going to go on in the Lakers locker room this year. So, so that's it. Yeah, that's my take on the list in of itself. However, right now I'm going to go into my list, but first I want to give my criteria, and it's very easy. Who do I want coaching my team if my goal is to win a championship this year? Let's get that out of here. That's from the gym. Who do I want? So who do I want coaching my team if I want to win a championship this year? So those with experience are probably going to be a little bit higher. Those that have a history of winning are going to be higher, which I know is unfair. But if I want a guy leading my team to win a championship, I need guys who have proven me to do so. So, but keep in mind, this is also projection as well. So, so I need to have seen that you've done at least something to start. But for now, let's start off with 21 through 30. So, number 30, I agree with 30, 29, and 28. JJ Redick, Brian Keefe, and Jordi Fernandez. Those are three coaches that I don't really know. I guess there was only 30 and 29 that I disagreed with, but the 30 and 29, I don't really know much about them and how they're going to be. I especially don't know much about Keefe. I also don't know much about Jordi Fernandez. I didn't really do my research on him a ton ahead of time, but I know that Nets fans are kind of excited about him. Willie Green is another guy who I don't know a ton about, but except the fact that the Pelicans are an interesting team just because they do have potential. I think that Brandon Ingram is a better player than people say he is. Zion, when healthy, is one of the best players in the league. DeJounte Murray will be an interesting pickup this year. So they just have some solid pieces, but not really great chemistry. So I don't know how much of that is on Green or how much of it is on roster construction, but either way, very interesting scenario there. 26, I have Chauncey Billups. Take him or leave him. I don't think he's a good person, but again, a guy who knows the game, but I don't know how much the players respect him in the locker room. It's not so much respect, but just how much they would look up to another player. Number 5 is Darko Rajakovic. He was the Raptors coach after Nick Nurse was fired. So I think that he's I think the Raptors fans liked him a lot this year. It'll be interesting to see how he bounces back. I know that I think it's Matt who said that he thinks the Raptors are going to be a better team this year. Scotty Barnes is going to take that another jump, I think, but I don't know. I don't really trust anyone outside their roster. I do have Billy Donovan at 24. I don't remember where was he higher or lower? Let me check real quick. Billy Donovan was number 20. Oh, so I had the exact same thing. So, 24, veteran coach with the Thunder, but not really much of a track record of going far with less. 23, I had Quinn Snyder. Maybe that's a little disrespectful, but I don't really trust I don't really know. I don't know what his ceiling would be with the championship roster. Obviously, he didn't really have that with Trey and DeJounte, and he does really have it now. But I'll be interested to see what he cooks up for like a Trey Young led team, like by himself. And then I am expecting Charles Lee to hop right in and do a great job coaching the Thunder. Oh no, not the Thunder, the Hornets. I'm a big fan of Lee, as I mentioned. Brandon Miller, I'm a fan of as well. So that'll be a very interesting duo to see. Big fan of Charles Lee, as I mentioned. He was a big help for Joe Mazzulla. After that, 21, I have Kenny Atkinson. I mentioned with him. I know that Nets fans really liked him. and I really like this Cavs roster. So I'm excited to see the changes he makes to it. So that's my 21 through 30. Now I'll go 11 through 20. So 20, I have JB Bickerstaff. He's the ex-coach of the Cavs. Speaking of, I'm a slightly bigger fan of Bickerstaff than Atkinson. That's probably just because I haven't really seen Atkinson coach in about 5 years, but Bickerstaff I'm a big fan of. Jason Kidd had at 19. I'm trying to so Jason Kidd was, what was he, higher? I think Jason Kidd was number 18. Oh, so chest lower. I'm not gonna lie, I'm surprised at this because I feel like he was very respected by like the media and like around the league before the finals, which I know it's recency bias, but I don't think he's great. I'm sure I'm not sure the Mavs would have gone farther without him, honestly. So I don't know. I feel like once the Mavs improved their roster, they were very, very solid. They obviously made the finals with him, so I don't see how much you could hate him for that. I spelled Budenholzer wrong. Budensolver. Mike Budenholzer, again, I'm not a huge fan of him. What was he, 9? I don't think he's a top 10 coach. All due respect. Maybe this year off gave him a new perspective, but we'll see. 17, Doc Rivers, as I mentioned, very disrespected by the media and fans. He coached Chris Paul, who I understand is he's a playoff dropper, but at the same time, I know that could get overblown, but he has that reputation for a reason. James Harden, Joel Embiid. And then last year, he didn't have Giannis or Dame for majority of the series and had to go up against a really hot Pacers team. The Pacers were better than the 60 last year, in my opinion. 16, Steve Kerr. I don't know about Steve Kerr. He's a really tough one to rank. What was he? I think he was let me check real quick. He was number 4. That's way too high. Obviously, 4-time champion. You can't discount that too much, but I don't know I feel like most of these coaches, I think ahead of him would have easily done the same thing. But I know I understand that, but at the same time, I don't really trust him. I feel like he exposed a lot of his problems in the Olympics this year, especially with not playing Tatum. Mark Vieto singles 9-3 Mets. Let's go. So there's and yeah, that's my issue with Steve Kerr is a lot of the like when push comes to shove, I feel like he kind of folds a lot. 15, we got Greg Popovich. As I mentioned with Popovich, I'll say it again. Like, and I do this a lot with presidents. Like, I'll mention who was president at the time. Greg Popovich has not won a playoff series since Trump's first term. Not his first term, his first year in office. So he only served one term. Yeah, but since Trump's first year in office, like that was the last time that Greg Popovich won a playoff series. So I know he hasn't been put in the best situation, but how much can you really say is a top whatever coach with that reputation? But I think I actually had him higher than 14, yeah, so a little bit lower. But I forgot to mention the poll. I brought up a poll with Joe Mazzulla comparing him to other coaches in the league, and I understand a lot of my followers are Celtics fans, so they rated him. They rated I'm pretty sure Pop was the only coach that's beat Mazzulla. So I thought that was interesting. I think that's based on strictly name recognition, but I don't know. 14 is Will Hardy. Again, I mentioned him earlier. Great guy. Really helped Ime Udoka in the 2022 finals. Not the 2020 finals, the 2022 run. So, yeah, big fan of Will Hardy. 13, Tom Thibodeau. I know my Knicks fan friends are going to be mad at me for this, but I think with the Thibodeau system, you just have a ceiling. Just have 8 guys go all out, work really hard, which is great to have guys work really hard to get them prepared for the playoffs. The problem is a lot of them are gassed. And I'm not blaming Tibbs necessarily for a lot of the injuries because they were freak accidents. But I do think that come second round that they would have been gassed, which they could. I shouldn't say that, actually. Maybe by the conference finals, definitely. I think they would have easily gotten exposed by being how tired they were. 12, I do have Ime Udoka. Awesome in 2022. As I mentioned, completely fumbled the bag, so it doesn't really have the intangibles there. Although the players do love him, so that's one thing that he has the intangibles for. But he's I don't really trust his game adjustments either, though. So, great with the relationships and everything, but obviously just the intangibles and in-game adjustments. So, which I know people say like, the Celtics completely turned their season around in 2022. Yeah, they did, but you got to also discredit him for how bad they were playing in the beginning of the year, because as much as people don't want to believe this, in the past 2 years, Joe Mazzulla has less. This is like as of April, so I think Joe Mazzulla has less blown leads than Ime Udoka, which I know the Celtics have improved their roster since, but 2 years to 1 year, and the 1 year coach has more blown leads. That says a lot to me. And then Mike Brown, I mentioned I'm a huge fan of. Coach of the year in 2023. I think the Kings are going to be much better this year, so I'm very excited to see what happens there. And then lastly, I do have my top 10. This is my top 10 right here. Ty Lue at 10. Maybe that was a little disrespectful. I don't know, but it's I know that a lot of the Clippers fans were pretty upset with him when they trying to think about this for a second here. Like a lot of the Clippers fans were upset with him later, like during the playoffs. They feel like he wasn't making enough adjustments. So I guess that's my only issue with Ty Lue. Also, just the fact that he hasn't won much. I'm trying to think of when the last time. So 2017 was it? I think 2018. You got 2018. He coached the Cavs. Beginning of 2019, he got fired. I guess beginning of the 2018-19 season, he got fired. Was hired by the Clippers to be a bench coach in 2020, then eventually their head coach in 2021. So 2021, I'm definitely not doing this just to show off, by the way. 2021, he led the Clippers to their first conference finals ever. 2022, no Kawhi for the entire season, so they didn't make the playoffs. I think they made the play-in tournament, but they didn't make the playoffs, if I'm not mistaken. 2023, again, Kawhi gets injured in like game 2, I think, against the Suns in the first round, and then 2024. So maybe I'm being a little unfair to Ty Lue because he really hasn't been given the proper health and everything. But I don't know. I know that a lot of Clipper fans don't like him. 9 is River Carlisle. Awesome season with the Pacers this year. If that didn't happen, maybe I would have moved him down a few spots. But Nick Nurse, maybe that's a little too low. Maybe 2 is a little too high. So maybe probably somewhere in between. But I feel like he's another one living off his 2019 run, which Kawhi had to go absolutely ballistic. So I don't really know what to think about him though. 7, Jamal Mosley. Big fan of Mosley. I know that he's really good friends with JB Bickerstaff. I just think that he needs to be towards the top of the list just because he's a young coach. Did awesome with the Magic this year. I don't think that Paolo improved as much as people say he did, but everyone else improved outside of him. If Paolo takes that superstar jump this year, the Magic are going to be a threat in the East. They're not going to be as good as the Celtics, I don't think, but very, very tough though. And 6, Taylor Jenkins. Again, I'm expecting this year. I'm expecting Taylor Jenkins, John Morant, Marcus Smart, Zach Edey, Desmond Bane, Jaren Jackson Jr. I expect them to make the playoffs and win at least one playoff series. At least. They won one in 2022. So it's definitely not off the table, in my opinion, even though the West has improved since then. 5, I have Joe Mazzulla. Now I'm going to go on my Joe Mazzulla run. And a lot of it will be just debunking very, very, very false narratives around him. Now, let me tell you the full story about Joe Mazzulla. So I'm going to need a drink of water before I do this, actually. So here's the story about how Joe Mazzulla became a head coach. Very close to about 2 years ago today. Maybe not today, but like very close to 2 years ago. It was like around this date. I woke up. I was about to go to bed. Actually, I saw Wojbomb saying there's very high speculation that Ime Udoka could be suspended for a very, very long time. And to which I was very shocked about it. And then I also learned that Jason Tatum, Jaylen Brown, Marcus Smart, they were also extremely shocked about it as well. So that was something that he had to go through. Like just him as an assistant coach is like, holy crap, my boss is about to be suspended. Then the next morning, I don't know what exactly happened, but I'm pretty sure he was hired right before Brad Stevens and Rick Gersbach went on that press conference to discuss everything. So then Joe Mazzulla becomes the head coach. Which don't get me wrong, like it's not like Tatum, Brown, and Marcus Smart hated him, but they definitely liked Ime better, and they did respect Mazzulla because I know that there was like a press conference after the conference finals where Tatum was praising Mazzulla, so they really did like him. One thing I forgot to mention before that though is one of their assistant coaches, Will Hardy, was also stepped down to become the head coach of the Jazz, so he was kind of kicking himself, but Ime and Will Hardy were gone. So he had like 2 older guys that could have been there to mentor him, but they were gone obviously for 2 very different reasons. Then halfway through the season, Damon Stoudemire resigns to become the head coach of a college team. I forgot which one. So that's 3 coaches with experience that that left him behind. So Joe Mazzulla was, I don't want to say he was alone. He still had assistant coaches, but it wasn't his staff that he picked. So just very uncomfortable situation for Mazzulla. That was that's not even factoring in the on the court aspect of it. Now, obviously, trade for Malcolm Brogdon did improve their roster as a whole. Absolutely. That being said, Rob Williams was not healthy the entire season, and 2022 Rob Williams was debatably the defensive player of the year until he got injured. So I know that Rob Williams not being healthy sometimes goes against Mazzulla rather than Ime, but Rob Williams was not the same player. He came back in 2023. So I think that in and of itself made them a slightly worse team. Obviously, a lot of people were criticizing him for like his in-game adjustments, or lack thereof, I should say, which again, a lot of coaches go through that. So I don't think Joe Mazzulla should be singled out for that in of itself. That being said, there was also a lot more that he had to go through as well. Obviously, I mentioned that. I know that a lot of people say that it was Ime's baby, but Joe Mazzulla still led them to be a top 2 seed in the East. Ended up unfortunately losing in the conference finals, which I know people blame Mazzulla for that again. But why aren't you giving Joe Mazzulla credit? Like I know you can't really give him credit for falling down 3-0, but I think you should give him credit for climbing back up to climb up to be the third 3-3. But obviously they lose Game 7 because of Jason Tatum's not because of, but in part of Jason Tatum rolling his ankle. So after all that happens, 2024 comes around. He gets 2 new assistant coaches in Charles Lee, new head coach of the Hornets, and Sam Cassell, who I think has been he hasn't been blackballed for at all, but definitely someone who should be a head coach in my opinion. So two of those guys he adds back in. Then a lot happens in the offseason. Their leader in the locker room, Marcus Smart, is traded. So which I know people said was a positive. It's debatable whether it was a positive or not, but their leader had to leave the locker room. So that's another leader in the locker room that left. So I know that Jaylen Brown was like the guy to step it up, but Joe Mazzulla also had to be the guy to step it up as well. After that, they traded for. They're entering like a week before media day. They traded for Drew Holiday the day before media day. Rob Williams and Malcolm Brogdon, 2 core pieces of the team that just made the conference finals. So yes, it did improve the roster, but it was another adjustment that Joe Mazzulla had to make. And I know they had a much better team roster-wise, but just the notion that you could just put together a bunch of great players together and then they find a way to win. That's not how it works. That's not you saw that happen with the Suns. You saw it happen with the Lakers in 2022 when they traded for Westbrook. You need fits and you need good coaching. Exactly what Joe Mazzulla did. They didn't have Porzingis for 25 games. They won 21-4 in the games that they didn't play with him. Give credit to that for Jason Tatum. Give credit to that to Jaylen Brown. Give credit to that to Joe freaking Mazzulla. Joe Mazzulla is awesome at making adjustments. Maybe not in game, but adjustments for like pregame stuff. Joe Mazzulla is awesome at. And then people were criticizing him after the Celtics were the first seed for blowing those 2 leads against the Hawks. Who cares? They ended up being the first seed. They took after game 2, people saying like, "Oh, Joe Mazzulla blows. He's not a good head coach. Why are they losing to the Heat?" They win 3 games after that. Game 2, Donovan Mitchell lights up the Celtics. I should say round 2. Joe Mazzulla, Donovan Mitchell, start over. Round 2, game 2, Donovan Mitchell lights up the Celtics, so the series is tied 1-1. Joe Mazzulla blows. Celtics win 3 in a row. Game 1, they're about to lose the game. Jaylen Brown comes through, gets the steal against Siakam, hits the game-winning 3. Overtime comes around. They make some adjustments. They win the game. Game 3, tough game. They're about to lose the game, and then Drew Holiday comes and saves the day. You don't win that game without Joe Mazzulla telling them what to do. And then obviously the finals comes around. One thing that gets severely overlooked is how they adjusted to Porzingis was injured, but they decided to adjust in certain ways. So spreading the floor and then putting Drew Holiday in the dunker spot to post up Kyrie. That was an awesome adjustment. Porzingis was hurt. So rather than going with their backup center, Luke Cornett to like back up Al Horford. They went with Xavier Tillman, who is good at guarding centers, but not as good as Luke Cornett. But he had to switch onto Luka and Kyrie multiple times. Not a lot of people wanted them to do that. He went with Xavier Tillman because of matchups, and he knew what to do. And speaking of Luke Cornett, Peyton Pritchard, and Sam Hauser all had hands down their best career of their the best year of their careers. All of that is why Joe Mazzulla is a top 5 coach in the league, without a doubt. He's not the 11th best coach in the league. He is top 5, argue a wall. That was easily my longest tangent, but it's going to stay that way. So Mark Daniel, again, coach of the year, 100% deserved it, even though I did pick Mazzulla. Chris Finch, another awesome one. Mike Malone, champion coach, extremely disrespected on that list. He's easily a top 2 coach in the league. And then Eric Spoelstra, as mentioned, number 1. So let me exit this real quick. Let me take this one out, and I'm going to add this one in. No, that one not. There's another one. That showed the entire list, but that's okay. Couldn't get that one up. So I'm not going to read the entire list again, but I went through the entire thing. When I talked about Mazzulla probably a little bit longer than all the other ones, but that's okay. So yeah, not much else to say about the coaches. Do I have this copy here? Is that going to work? Oh, here we go. Okay. So I'm about to pull up the top 30 coaches. Here I have with me. Here are the 30 best coaches in the league. From Eric Spoelstra all the way down to JJ Redick. I'm going to post this on TikTok, so that's why I'm saying it this way. Here are the 30 best coaches in the league. Here's all the coaches in the league ranked. From Eric Spoelstra to JJ Redick. How'd I do? We got Greg Popovich and Steve Kerr smack dab in the middle, along with Doc Rivers. Got Joe Mazzulla in the top 5. Got Ty Lue rounding out the top 10. Charles Lee, a newcomer, at 22. Let me know what you think. So, now we get into the fun parts. Obviously, you guys know I love my rankings. We just did the coaches. Now we're going to do the players, which are slightly easier to evaluate. It is hard to evaluate players, but far easier to do for coaches. But far easier to do than coaches, I should say. But yeah, first we'll do the Western Conference because we're going to go geography. We're going to go left to right. Oh wow, that was good. Because obviously I'm mirrored. So yeah, this is my left hand actually. But yeah, to start off. So my criteria for ranking players, similar to coaches. If I want to win a championship, who would I rather have on my team? And that is just not ranking based on talent. It is not ranking based on intangibles. It is ranked on a couple of things. So first off, the number one player is always going to from the top to the top 10 players. I think who can win a championship with the least amount of help. So as the number one option. So obviously guys like Jokic, Giannis, Tatum, Luka, Embiid, LeBron, KD, Steph. Most of them have either proven they can win a championship or are near the top of the league to where they can win a championship as long as they're healthy. That being said, I also do factor in health. So guys like Embiid and Kawhi Leonard are going to be a little bit lower than what they would be in the regular season. So after that, so I mentioned like those 9 or 10 guys. After that is when I get into, okay, you can't win as a number one option. How can you most help us as a number 2 option? So guys like Trae Young, he is a fantastic floor raiser, like turning a bad team into like a slightly below average team, or you can even say average in a lot of cases. I don't know how great he'd be as a number 2 option. So I know some people have him. Like I had him last year in my top 20. I did move him down a few spots. He was very good this year. Like he was much better on defense. Wasn't as good on offense. But I don't know if he could be the number 2 option on a championship team unless he has like a guy like Jokic or Giannis aside him. So like he has to be like a perfect situation to be a number 2 on a championship team, in my opinion. So he would be a little bit lower. But then guys like Jaylen Brown. Love Jaylen Brown to death. I don't know if he could be the solidified number 1 on a championship team, but however, he has just proven he can be the number 2 on a championship team and will thrive in doing so. So that's why I do have Jaylen Brown. He's going to be a little bit higher than on most people's lists. So with that being said, I'm going to go with the West first. My top 10 players in the West. Honorable mentions, I have Victor Wembanyama, Ja Morant, and De'Aaron Fox. None of those guys could be first options on a championship team. I think all of them would be awesome second options, though. I know some people might argue, oh, maybe Ja could be the first option. I don't know about that. He hasn't made the conference finals yet, so I'm going to take a little bit easier. That being said, there's a player on this list who hasn't made the conference finals, so that's tough. Maybe a little more time. Like maybe need to see Ja play for a little bit longer. We'll see. But here are my top 10 players in the Western Conference. At number 10, I got Kawhi Leonard. Now, Kawhi Leonard, people are going to say, oh, he's injured all the time. You can't have him as the number one on championship team. You can. Because there is a chance. Think about people say like, oh, there's no chance he's gonna be healthy for the playoffs, and you're right. There is a very, very small chance he'll be available for the playoffs. But that being said, this guy could be a number one on a championship team easily. We saw how awesome he was from December to February. One of the best players in the league. You could debate he was the MVP during that span. I think that Kawhi Leonard has become underrated because of his health, and I think he could be the number one option on a championship team. 10 just happened to be the cutoff, by the way, for this. I think these top 10 guys could be the number one on a championship team and put in the right situation. Number 9, I got Devin Booker. Now, Booker has a history of playing awful in elimination games. He played awesome in this elimination game, and it was like the opposite. It was like the opposite of what his reputation is, because he's a playoff riser for sure. 2021, he was awesome. 2023, in the first 2 rounds, he was phenomenal. People were saying he was better than Durant. And this year he didn't play that great, but however, game 4, when he got swept by the Wolves, game 4, he played awesome. So it was kind of an opposite situation. So we'll see if he can combine the two to where he's good in elimination games and in the playoffs. So but Booker is one he has to be put in a perfect situation, in my opinion. So that's my issue there with him. Number 8, I got Anthony Edwards. Has become insanely overrated to me. I like Anthony Edwards as a player. As a person, it's kind of up in the air, but Anthony Edwards has been awesome. He was awesome in the conference finals. I think he could be the number one option on a championship team. We saw him dominate against the Nuggets. Fell apart. He didn't fall apart, actually. He played well against the Mavs, but definitely not good enough. So that's why I have Ant as number 8. Now, number 7 is where it gets interesting, because I don't know if this guy could be the number one on championship team. However, he is hands down the best number 2. And I think you put him on any team, you can either be the best player or the second best player. And if he's the second best player on your team is very close to being a contender. That is Anthony Davis. The best defender in the league, in my opinion, has struggled on offense. Not a great 3-point shooter. As a matter of fact, a bad 3-point shooter at this point in his career. The guy can play. He anchors defenses like no other. He can switch 1 through 5. He protects the rim better than anyone else besides Rudy Gobert, in my opinion. And people trash his availability. He's been very healthy the past 2 years, though. So shout out to him. The best number 2 in the league, and I think could be best player in a championship team, even though a lot of people disagree. 4, 5, 6 was very, very, very tough to decide, and I'm still kind of debating in my head. But if I'm doing based off if I want to win a championship this year, these two guys. Number 6, I'm going to go with LeBron James. Now, obviously, LeBron James is better than Steph Curry and Kevin Durant, which, spoiler, those are the 2 guys I have ahead of him all time. However, he just had 2 healthy seasons in a row after having a couple seasons of him being unhealthy. I hope I'm wrong, but I'm kind of projecting him to have a slight step back this year due to his age, which I know is controversial because I have Kevin Durant at number 5. But I do slightly trust Kevin Durant more to stay healthy than LeBron, which I know is ridiculous to say, but that's what I think. And then Steph Curry is 4. Steph Curry was probably worse than LeBron and KD this year as a player, but last year Curry was much, much better than both of them. And I'm thinking that it's going to go back to the same thing this year. I think Steph Curry will be better than LeBron and KD this year. And then this top 3 is interesting. Shea I have at number 3. I know a lot of people think that Shea is a good lock top 4 or 5 player. I disagree with that. Obviously, as the number 1 option, he only has won 1 playoff series, which I know a lot of it isn't in his control, but I think he's been giving his flowers a little too early. But that being said, he was awesome in the playoffs this year. I don't want to trash him too much. He was awesome in the playoffs this year. It came down to like a foul at the end of Game 6, which I know was the right call, but could have easily been something else, and could have been a Game 7, could have been a 7-game series against the Mavs. That would have been very interesting. So, Shea's an awesome player. It will be interesting to see him come back to having superstar expectations this year. And then 1 and 2, I know people say are interchangeable. I do not think they are. Number 2, I do have Luka Doncic, one of the best offensive players in the league, phenomenal scorer, one of the best playmakers in the league. Led his team to the finals, has led his team to the conference finals in 2 of the last 3 years. I'm not expecting the Mavs to be good at all this year. All right, they'll be good, but just not. I don't think they'll be nearly as good this year as they were last year. I don't think they'll fall back to being like a traditional 5 seed, not one that makes the finals. And number 1, I got Nikola Jokic. Best player in the league, in my opinion. One of the best scorers, one of the best rebounders, the best passer, in my opinion. Like, I know he's not great on defense, but this guy is, outside of LeBron, MJ, and Magic, I don't think anyone, I think he has a case over just about anyone, including Steph. So top 4, top 5 offensive player of all time and best player in the league. I know that he didn't play great in the playoffs this year as usual, but, and I know people are doubting the Nuggets, but I think the Wolves were a tough matchup for them, and it took them 7 games. So I'm thinking that the Nuggets are going to go back, maybe not a 1 seed, but I think they'll go far in the playoffs this year again. So in short, honorable mentions: Victor Wembanyama, John Morant, De'Aaron Fox, and 10 through 1, Kawhi Leonard, Devin Booker, Anthony Edwards, Anthony Davis, LeBron James, Kevin Durant, Steph Curry, Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, Luka Doncic, and Nikola Jokic. Let me know what you think. Now we'll go out to the East, the significantly worse conference. Just keep in mind now, this is if I'm building a championship for next season. Who do I want on my team? I think there are 3 guys at the top of the East who can. 2 of them have proven to be the best player on a championship team. After that is where it gets tough, because after that we have some smaller guards and guys. And I know people say like, oh, smaller guards can't be the number 1 option on a championship team. A lot of them can't be number 2s either. Like if we go back the past few years, 2024, Jaylen Brown was the 2nd best player, wing. 2023, you got Jamal Murray, but it took him going off. Like you really have to play great. 2022, Draymond Green and Andrew Wiggins, both wings and big. 2021, who's 2021? The Bucks. Chris Middleton was better than Drew. 2020, Anthony Davis. 2019, Pascal Siakam. 2018, the Warriors super team. 2016, I guess it was Kyrie. So unless you're like a superstar, there's really not much you can do as the number 2 bad defender. So that's my take on that. So, and this is very subject to change just because it's very tough. I'm still having a tough time to evaluating a lot of these players, but honorable mentions, I do have Bam Adebayo, Paul George, Trae Young, and Paolo Banchero. I think that Trae Young is easily the best flourisher at all these guys, but as the number 2 option, I don't want him on my team, on my championship team. So 10 through 1, Tyrese Maxey number 2. Tyrese Maxey number 10. Maxey was phenomenal this year, and I think that he's going to continue that. I'm a big fan of Tyrese Maxey. I hate that he plays for the Sixers, and I'm expecting him to be a key part for the Sixers this year. I think that him and Embiid will continue to be phenomenal, but I think that Paul George will be the X factor on that team to see how far they go. Number 9, another Tyrese Halliburton, which I know some people are overrating him a little bit as of late. I think CBS Sports came out with their ranking. I think he was at 13 for the league. I think that's absurd. But if what they're saying, oh, you're projecting, you're going to rank the younger guys. But just think about it this way. If you're building a team to win a championship this year, who do you want? LeBron James or Tyrese Halliburton? If you're building a team to win a championship this year, who do you want? LeBron James or Steph Curry? If you are building a championship team, who do you want? Tyrese Halliburton or I guess Devin Booker. You want Devin Booker. Don't lie. Tyrese Halliburton was awesome with the Pacers this year. He's not going to be the number 1 option on a championship team. And I think in order to do that, to be like near that area, you need to at least be that guy that can lead your team to a championship. I know people say like, oh, just switch them with a lot of these superstars. They say, oh, switch Tatum with this superstar, they might win a championship, which is very flawed. But Halliburton is not one of those guys you could switch Tatum with to win a championship. Number 8. I skipped over him. I got Jimmy Butler. Seems a little low. That being said, he's only getting older. He's only getting more injury prone. And as much of a playoff riser he is, I do not trust him anymore. If you're going to be playing like slightly below your potential, you need to elevate your game you need to really elevate your game in the playoffs. The fact that Butler was not great in the regular season this year and did not play in the playoffs is a big red flag, and only the 8th best player in the Eastern Conference this year. Number 7, I got Damian Lillard, which I know people are all out on Dame. I'm not. I'm someone for years was very critical of Dame's play, but that being said, I'm expecting him to have a bounce back year this year, and I think the Bucks will be the second best team in the East because of Damian Lillard. I think he's good as just as anyone from 3. Maybe he can't move as good as he used to, but I still think that he'll improve slightly. A lot went wrong for the Bucks this year, and I think that Dame will be a reason. I think that Dame being home and having a full offseason with his team will be very beneficial to him. What we got here? Number 6. I got Jalen Brunson. Unfortunately, my Knicks fan friends aren't watching now. I really wish they were here to see all the flipping outs that would be going on. Jalen Brunson was phenomenal in the regular season, and he was even better in the playoffs. Played great. However, I'm not going to downplay anything because he played great. That being said, your team has a ceiling. If your point of attack defender is someone who gets taken out of games at the end of games. He takes a lot of charges, but he's a bad defender. Don't get it twisted. And I feel like if he began to play elite defenses, he would have fell apart. Not fell apart, but definitely taken a dip. I don't think he could win as number 1 option. He could win as number 2 option, but the 2 guys I have ahead of him and would be better as number 2s, including the guy who I think is the 5th best player in the Eastern Conference, Donovan Mitchell. I'm a huge fan of Donovan Mitchell. Donovan Mitchell's playoff run this year was very slid under the radar. Dropped 50 in Game 6 against the Magic. Continued to play great in Game 7, and then did awesome against the Celtics until he got injured. Which I know injury concern is a big thing with him, so I have no issue if you're going to move him below Brunson or anyone else. That being said, I think that Donovan Mitchell is one of the more underrated players in the league. He was underrated. I don't think he's underrated anymore. But except that CBS Sports had him at 19, which is ridiculous. But huge fan of Donovan Mitchell. Let's go Mets again. What's going on? I haven't said that in a while. 9-3 still? Oh, cool. Okay. So, the 4th best player in the Eastern Conference. I got my guy, Jaylen Brown. Now, when I had John and Matt on the show a few weeks ago, when we ranked our shooting guards, I had Jaylen Brown below Anthony Edwards, Devin Booker, and Donovan Mitchell. I think that if I'm building a championship, if I'm building a team to win a lot of games, and my best player could be leading the team, either Donovan Mitchell or Jaylen Brown, I would pick Donovan Mitchell, because I do think that Mitchell's play, like his offensive abilities, like raising a team's floor on offense, Donovan Mitchell is objectively better at. Brown's better on defense for sure, but raising a team's floor ability is Donovan Mitchell. I'll give him very easily. But if I'm winning a championship and I have a player better than me ahead of me, I want Jaylen Brown. He's a guy that's going to fill. He's a more versatile player, so he's going to be a guy that's going to fill. He fills more holes. He can get you a bucket whenever you need. He can lead the locker room if you're not so great at that, but he can also take a step back if you need. I'd rather have Jaylen Brown on my team over Donovan Mitchell if I want to win a championship, which is a little controversial because number 3, I have Joel Embiid, which I'm not going to go too far where I'd say I'd rather have Jaylen Brown over Joel Embiid, but I'm not going to say it. I'm not going to say it. But yeah, Joel Embiid is the 3rd best player in the Eastern Conference Finals, which I know people say he's the top 2 player in the league. I disagree. You need to do something. You need to do something past the second round if I want to consider you a top 3 player in the league. He has not done that. Joel Embiid is one of the best regular season players of all time. He played awesome this year in the regular season. He played better this year in the playoffs. He was great in the playoffs this year. Don't get it twisted. But I need to see you do it past the first round. Will he do it this year? Who knows? We'll see. But I need to see it until you actually do it. That's why I'm not building around him. And instead, I'm building around the second best player in the East, Jason Tatum. Don't lie. In the playoffs, who would you rather have, Jason Tatum or Joel Embiid? In a big game, like a relatively big playoff game, like whether it be like a game 3, game 4, like you need to win the game. Who do you want, Joel Embiid or Jason Tatum? You want Jason Tatum. You get late in the series, like game 6, 7. You know who gets better as the series gets later? Jason Tatum. You know who gets worse as the series gets later? Joel Embiid. Be honest with yourself. Who would you rather have building your team around to win a championship? This is not recency bias. You want Jason Tatum. This is not recency bias, as I mentioned. This has been for years. Jason Tatum constantly gets further than Joel Embiid in the playoffs, which I know he's had the better teams, but it's been without question. The closest they got to him was last year in 2023, in which they were literally 6 minutes away from beating the Celtics, upsetting the Celtics in the conference semifinals. Embiid could have closed the door, but he didn't. Al Horford had other plans. Jason Tatum had other plans. He had 4 threes in the last couple of minutes, one of them being in Embiid's face. Then, okay, game 7 comes around. Let's beat the Celtics now. Jason Tatum dropped 51 points and had 0 turnovers. Be honest with yourself. Who would you rather have when winning a championship? If you want to win a championship, you want Jason Tatum to lead your team, not Joel Embiid. Which, speaking of which, the last guy I have is Giannis Antetokounmpo. As much as I love Tatum, I don't think he's just on Giannis's level yet. I know people say, "Oh, he can't do it." I think he can. He's a lot more versatile than Giannis. Much better shooter, free throw shooter, 3-point shooting. Tatum's taking a step back on, but I still know that he's a much better 3-point shooter than Giannis. So yeah, that's my opinion there. So yeah, in short, honorable mentions, I got Bam Adebayo, Paul George, Trae Young, and then 10 through 1, Tyrese Maxey 10, Tyrese Halliburton 9, Jimmy Butler 8, Damian Lillard 7, Jalen Brunson 6, Donovan Mitchell 5, Jaylen Brown 4, Joel Embiid 3, Jason Tatum 2, Giannis Antetokounmpo 1. Let me know what you think. So we went a little bit over this time, and we were a little late. So yeah, it is pretty late, but guys, I'm very, very excited. This is something I've wanted to do for a little bit now. I'm going to be recording the podcast later in the day. More people are going to be able to tune in. Obviously, when I get home from work, I'll have more time to prepare. So overall, I'm just super, super excited for this, for this, and I hope the viewers are really excited too. Let me pull up the banner real quick. Wasn't able to do that when I was sharing the screen, but this has been another episode of the All American Hoops podcast. Make sure to subscribe to All American Hooper on YouTube, Instagram, Twitter, and TikTok. Subscribe to @SportsFluence on YouTube, who has been awesome with very flexible, like with the timing and everything, to catch every episode on Thursday at 8 p.m. Make sure to follow @SportsFluent on TikTok, X, and Instagram. Yeah, Sports Fluent has some I say it every week. Sports Fluent has some awesome shows, including The Creators Hour by Orwy B, Fluent and Chill, Chilltown Hoops. 9 Degrees North, I think, is the show they have on Sunday nights. Yeah, it's been an awesome ride. So shout out Sports Fluent. Shout out to the fans. Shout out to John and Matt. This has been another episode of the All American Hoops podcast, and I hope that everyone has an awesome night.